Okay, let's just dive right into it with a question that's, well, it's pretty provocative. Is Gen Z actually getting dumber? We're going to unpack the data, the debate, and what's really going on behind this pretty controversial headline. So, this whole conversation really kicks off with this just wow, this startling testimony given to the US Senate. Think about that for a second. For the very first time on record, we have a generation showing poorer cognitive performance than their parents. A claim that big? Yeah, we definitely need to take a much closer look. And to really get your head around just how shocking this is, we've got to rewind a bit. We need to look at what's been happening for the last 100 years or so. You see, for more than a century, a very simple rule held true. Each new generation was cognitively sharper than the one before it. This wasn't just a trend. It was so consistent, so reliable, that it was basically treated like a law of nature. This phenomenon, this constant upward climb in intelligence scores, actually has a name. And the scale of it is, well, it's absolutely staggering. This really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? Starting back in the 1930s, average IQ scores just kept climbing, decade after decade. To put it another way, if you took someone from the early 1900s and gave them an IQ test today, they'd score around a 70. But if you took one of us and tested us by their standards, we'd score around a 130. A massive difference. And this incredible century-long boom in brainpower was named the Flynn Effect, after the researcher who was the first to really document it on a massive global scale. So, here's the million-dollar question. Were our great-grandparents less intelligent, or were they just equipped differently? The source material gives us this brilliant analogy. Our fundamental biology, our brains, didn't really change, but our mental tools did. It's like a soldier's rifle evolving from a single-shot musket to a machine gun. We developed new ways of thinking, like using abstract thought and scientific categories. But then, after an entire century of nonstop growth, something changed. This incredibly reliable trend, it didn't just slow down or level off. It actually started to go in reverse. It was researchers in Norway who first spotted this, looking at data from their military conscripts. They found that for guys born after 1975, the scores started to dip. And it wasn't just a fluke in Norway. Soon, the same exact trend was confirmed in Finland, Denmark, the UK, pretty much right across the developed world. And this chart shows us exactly where the drop is most severe. I mean, you can see slight declines in older groups, sure, but the data is crystal clear. The most significant, the steepest drop is happening right now with 18 to 22-year-olds, the generation we call Gen Z. And this data, it kind of lines up with stories we're hearing from the modern workplace, like this one from a tech manager who said, yeah, my young employees can master a new app in seconds, no problem. But when something simple like the office printer breaks, they just freeze. They don't even try to figure it out. This has actually been given a name, the black box syndrome. It's this idea that you can use a piece of complex technology perfectly, fluently, but have zero clue how it actually works under the hood. And that leads to this kind of helplessness when it breaks. It really marks a shift from being a creator of technology to just being a consumer. So does this all mean an entire generation is just getting dumber? Or is something more complicated going on here? Maybe it's a kind of cognitive trade-off. Now this is where it gets really interesting. This data is from that same 2023 Northwestern study. And yeah, it confirmed the declines in things like verbal reasoning and numerical skills. But it also found a surprising increase in one very specific area, 3D spatial reasoning. So maybe we need a new analogy. The traditional brain was like a computer's CPU, right? It's great at logical, step-by-step tasks like deep reading. But maybe the modern brain is evolving into something more like a GPU, a graphics card, specializing in processing tons of visual and spatial information all at once, kind of like navigating a huge 3D video game. So it's not a decline so much as a cognitive shift. But this cognitive shift isn't just a theory. It's having real, tangible consequences out there in the world. And because of that, we're now seeing some countries starting to actively push back against this digital tide. Just look at Sweden. They were pioneers in digital education, right? They went all in, replacing classroom books with tablets. And what happened? Reading comprehension scores plummeted. Their own education minister called it an experiment without a scientific basis. And now they're spending over 100 million euros just to bring physical, printed books back into schools. And it's not just Sweden. Denmark is taking some really decisive steps too. They're putting in a nationwide ban on mobile phones in elementary schools, and they're even restricting social media for kids under 15. The whole point is to try and bring back more direct, face-to-face social interaction. Okay, but before we all panic and declare a full-blown cognitive crisis, it's really worth taking a step back. Because this fear, this idea that new technology is ruining our minds, it is not new at all. In fact, it's ancient. Get a load of this. We're talking over 2,000 years ago. The great philosopher Socrates was worried that the invention of writing would literally destroy human memory. He thought people would just stop trying to remember things themselves. And then let's fast forward to the 15th century. When the printing press came along, you had scholars worrying that having too many books around would just make people intellectually lazy, less studious. Sound familiar? I mean, the pattern just repeats itself over and over again. Radio was going to kill books. TV was going to kill radio. We all remember hearing that calculators would destroy our basic math skills and that the internet would absolutely demolish our attention spans. So what makes today any different? Why should we take this moment more seriously? Well, it's the sheer unprecedented speed and scale of it all. The internet, mobile phones, social media, and now AI. All of these massive revolutions have slammed into us and converged within a single generation. So here's what it all boils down to. New tools have always reshaped how we think. That's not new. What's new is the incredible pace of that change. So the real question isn't if our brains will change, it's how we are going to choose to direct that change. We're not just passive victims of technology here. The future of how we think? That's not something that just happens to us. It's a choice we are all making every single day.